Story 1, Knock Knock. One night I woke up to a knock on the front door. It was 2:37 on the clock, and it was very strange that someone came to me at such a late hour. The night visitor knocked very persistently. I carefully approached the door to look at who came, when suddenly, "Open quickly," said a hysterical female voice. Like any normal person, I wanted to help and was already reaching out to open the door. Having turned, the keys made a rather loud sound, because of which the night visitor began to knock even more insistently and continued to shout, "Open it faster." But now there was something wrong in the woman's voice. Its timbre became rougher. I walked away from the door and began to listen. Now I didn't want to open it anymore. Time dragged on for a very long time. It was scary to even make a sound, so I sat with my back leaning against a large wooden cabinet and waited. The visitor continued to knock, or rather, he was already hammering on the door with force. The voice of this creature changed. Now it was not a woman's hysterical scream, but a monotonous animal roar in places, already ordering me to open the door. I got up and quietly walked to the door to look at this creature. What I saw through the peephole filled me with horror. In the twilight stood a huge, humanoid, hunchbacked creature. His eyes, glowing in the dark, looked straight at me. It felt me. The night guest greedily licked his lips and slammed into the door. This made the metal door shudder, and I understood that if the creature broke through, it would be the end for me. In an instant everything stopped. The apartment became quiet, even too quiet. I broke out in a cold sweat. I felt that it was standing there and seemed to be waiting for me to make at least one sound. The darkness pressed down on me. At times it seemed to me that if I had sat here a little longer, I would definitely have gone crazy. Suddenly, the front door of the apartment on the floor below opened. The monster began to move again. A few seconds later I heard my neighbor scream, and then everything suddenly died down. Later, various screams were heard throughout the entrance for a long time, and then silence fell again. But literally 5 minutes later they started pounding on my door again. Realizing that I was finished, I began to wait for this creature to break into my apartment. The darkness deepened. I was scared like a little child. Huddled into the far corner of the room, he sat without making a sound or moving. Still, there was something pleasant in all this. There was no silence that oppressed me. I don't remember how long I sat like that, but still, unable to bear it, I passed out. When I woke up, which was already good, the first thing I did was look at the clock. The time was 10:42. Voices were coming from behind the door. Deciding that it was a nightmare, I left the apartment, and what I saw made me understand that this was far from a dream. The paneling of the door leading into the entrance was all stripped down to the metal, which, in turn, was covered in dents. There was blood all over the entrance, on the walls, stairs, railings, and some doors. Gnawed bones and parts of human bodies lay everywhere. The doors of some apartments were wide open. As I later learned from the police, something broke into 7 apartments, leaving no one alive. Story 2, You Will Only Play With Me. I haven't seen Coca for 7 years. And about a year and a half ago we met by chance in a store. He was returning from lunch to the office, and there I was. We hugged, exchanged phone numbers, and agreed to meet each other in the near future. But Coca was in no hurry to leave. "Just let's definitely meet, no fools," he squeezed my hand tightly. "How about this Saturday?" "Fine." But the agreement, do not take wives and children. The bar was crowded on Saturday and we had a hard time finding a table. The conversation somehow didn't go well. Coca drank a lot and smoked one cigarette after another. "And you know, I go to church now," he unexpectedly admitted, blowing out a ring of bluish smoke. "I don't miss a single Sunday service." Wow, a parishioner, I thought, looking at the lit cigarette and another shot of vodka. But what about all this? I couldn't resist. "It's all nerves," the friend waved him off. "You see, sometimes it's so boring that you don't even have anyone to talk to, but you want to talk it out." I could have stopped her, stop forever. But he didn't. He was just very scared for Ksiuka and gave her to other people. Understand? He did evil with his own hands. And Nikolai told me his story. "It happened 5 years ago," he began. "It's still creepy to remember. Ksiuka was only 4 years old then. Someone brought a doll to their kindergarten, such expensive porcelain ones. I should have seen how the girls, her eyes lit up. She ate my wife and I's entire baldness, by and by. Well, the prices for such toys, are stinging. My Natalia says, you're still wandering past the flea market in Izmayovo. Stop by on the weekend. They sell all sorts of folk items, crafts, and maybe good antiques can be found cheaper." I went to the flea market in the morning. Dishes, irons, samovars, watches, they sell so much. I wandered here and there, and the prices were steep there too. Tattered old baby dolls cost 1,000. What can we say about porcelain dolls? I was already getting ready to leave when I saw a woman standing. In her hands she was holding an antique doll in a luxuriously embroidered dress, in excellent condition. And most importantly, eyes with black piercing pupils, as if alive. I think to myself, this is it, you have to take it, no matter how much it costs. How lovely. How many? I ask. And the woman answers me, give me as much as you don't mind. I was a little freaked out. I think I'll offer 3,000 now, which is what I initially planned to spend, and my aunt will send me away. I take out 3 banknotes, and then the woman hands me a doll and thanks. Thank you. Now Matilda is yours. I couldn't believe my luck. Can you imagine how I ended up at that flea market on time? There are crowds of collectors wandering around, sweeping away everything valuable, and I managed to hit such a jackpot. This Matilda probably costs 50 to 60,000, no less. And I, a fool, didn't even really ask that woman about her. Where is this doll from? Is she German? Swiss? She's 100 years old, maybe more. I flew home joyfully. I opened the door and call my daughter. Ksusha, this is for you. Her name is Matilda. You should have seen your daughter's eyes wide open with inexpressible happiness. Sayushka hugged me. Natasha also opened her mouth in surprise. What a gift. If you want, you can take her to kindergarten tomorrow, I told my daughter. The next morning the first surprise awaited me. In the morning, Ksuka left the gift on the shelf at home along with other dolls. Why don't you want to take Matilda to kindergarten? I asked. I allowed it. There are children there. And Matilda will only play with me, said Ksusha. She told me this herself last night. Well, since Matilda said it, then so be it, I smiled. The next night, my wife and I were awakened by a crash in our daughter's room. They rushed in, fearing the worst. Ksusha was sitting on the bed and crying. A shelf with toys collapsed on the floor. Lucy's plastic hand flew off, and the unreliable Chinese cubes cracked from the impact. My heart sank. Matilda did not live 2 days, and such an end. Don't cry, Xiaoshuan. We'll buy you a new one. I hugged my crying daughter, and then handed her to my wife. I lifted the shelf and couldn't believe my eyes. Matilda's porcelain head was absolutely intact. Dad, it didn't break. Hooray! Sayushka jumped up and down on the bed with joy. That same night, out of harm's way, I put Matilda in the open section of the closet, among the teddy bears. The next night Ksusha cried again. Dad, my daughter asked, turn Matilda to the wall. She's looking at me. I'm afraid of her. In fact, Matilda's gaze in the twilight was indeed eerie, blue-black, but I attributed this strangeness to the play of ancient colors. He turned Matilda to face the closet wall and pushed one of the bears forward. In the morning I had to take Sayushka to kindergarten, and then she called me into her room. Matilda was again sitting in the first row of toys. Her gaze was again directed at her daughter's bed. Have you made peace with Matilda? Trying to be serious, I asked Ksusha. The daughter shook her head. Ordinary children's games. The next night it happened again. Dad, take her, Sayushka cried at 3 in the morning. She's looking at me again. And she tells me to only play with her, and that all other dolls and toys should be thrown away. I put Matilda in the sideboard on the top shelf, placed her facing the wall and closed the heavy glass door. The magnetic locks clicked quietly. Oh. My daughter definitely won't fit in here. In the morning I entered Ksuka's room, and the first thing that caught my eye was Matilda's face looking into the room through the glass door of the sideboard. In the evening, Natasha and I drank coffee in the kitchen and talked. Cole, we need to do something, the wife said in a whisper. I'm already afraid of this Matilda. Throw it to hell. Have you thought about Ksuka? She's playing with her. Yes, but he never sleeps with her. Natalia got nervous. Where have you seen children never take their favorite dolls to bed? I put Matilda in the vacuum cleaner box and took it to another room. In the morning, Sayushka's temperature suddenly jumped just below 40. The daughter was lying in bed and delirious. She says that you are bad, that you don't love her or me, the daughter whispered in oblivion. And he says that he misses me. Natasha called the doctor and stayed with her daughter. In the evening I returned Matilda to her place with the teddy bears and went to the store to buy bread. The door was opened by a shocked wife with a thermometer in her hands. 36 and 6. Natasha exclaimed. From 38 degrees in 10 minutes while you were gone. Over the weekend, Natasha called the priest. On Sunday the sedate priest came and read the rule. Over tea, we honestly told him everything. They say, this way and that, we don't know what to do. This is a black doll, the priest pronounced the verdict. Perhaps it belonged to a sorcerer. Burn it in a deserted place. Do not give it to a child under any circumstances. When the priest left, I took the lighter fluid, put it in the bag where Matilda was already, and left the house. It's strange, but in the light of street lamps her face seemed quite ordinary to me, but when we got into the shadows, it became predatory. Although I reassured myself that it was all just a play of shadows. In the vacant lot behind the garages, I pulled out a bottle and carefully took out Matilda. But then a mobile phone beeped in my jacket pocket. Natasha was calling. Kolia, don't do anything. Ksuka feels bad. I threw the doll and lighter fluid back into the bag and rushed home. I don't know, maybe I just got carried away, but then I couldn't do anything differently. Ksusha lay unconscious on the bed, her face turned gray. The doctors called could not say anything definite, There was no temperature, the throat was normal, and the heart too. They gave some useless injection and left. I returned Matilda to her original place. An hour later, my daughter's face began to turn pink. A woman from work recommended me here. Natasha began carefully. Not enough devilry in one room for you. I flared up. Do you want the whole house to be full of devils? Just wait, my wife tried to calm me down. This is not a witch, just a knowledgeable woman. In any case, what to do next is up to us to decide. We met with Nana Alexeyevna in a cafe not far from Natashka's work. Gray eyes, thin lips, I didn't see anything witchy in this woman. If the priest didn't help, there is only one thing left, the woman said after listening to our story. You need to talk to the doll. Tell her that you are not her enemies and offer to move to other owners. And then try to take it back to where you bought it and sell it for as much as the buyer is willing to give. But sell it only to the person who will like it. You can't imagine what it cost me, Koka continued. Have you ever tried talking to dolls? I felt like a complete fool. While Ksuka was in the kindergarten, he took Matilda, sat her in a chair and said, I will not harm you. Don't touch Ksusha again, please. If you want, I'll take you to new people. I peered into her black pupils, but saw nothing there. The next days passed quietly. On the very first Saturday, I carefully wrapped the doll in my wife's old silk scarf and went to the flea market. On the subway I couldn't stand it and dialed Natasha's number. Everything was fine with Ksuka. At the flea market, different people approached Matilda and me, sometimes disgustingly calm, sometimes fussy, sometimes just silent subjects. They were cautiously interested in the price of Matilda, but every time I answered that the doll was not for sale. Oh, what a miracle. Suddenly a clear voice was heard behind her. It was a woman with blonde hair, about 30 years old. What dress? This is exactly what I was looking for my daughter. And what a serious look. Probably, dear, right. What is the price? No matter how much you feel sorry for me, I say. Kolya paused and poured himself another glass.